The heater had stopped working sometime after midnight, but Daniel didn't notice until the cold slipped under his blanket and wrapped itself around his bones. He woke with a sharp breath, the room dim and silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator down the hall. For a moment he stayed still, listening. Then he heard it. A soft shiver. Not from the wind. Not from the house. From the floor. He turned his head slowly, his eyes adjusting to the darkness. At the foot of his bed, curled into herself like something trying to disappear, was Lily. She hadn't even taken a blanket. Lily? His voice came out rough, still tangled in sleep. She didn't answer, just pulled her thin hoodie tighter around her shoulders. Her knees were pressed to her chest, her bare feet pale against the wooden floor. Daniel sat up instantly, the cold forgotten. "What are you doing down there?" "I'm fine," she whispered, but her teeth were chattering. He swung his legs off the bed and crouched beside her. Up close, he could see the faint redness around her eyes, like she'd been crying long before the cold reached her. "Fine," he repeated, softer now. "You're freezing." She shook her head, avoiding his gaze. "I didn't want to wake you. You've got work in the morning, and Emma needs you rested." Emma. The name tightened something in his chest. His 4-year-old daughter was asleep in the next room. Warm under layers of blankets Daniel had made sure were tucked perfectly around her. He had always made sure of that. But Lily. Lily had only been here 3 weeks. 3 weeks since Daniel's stepmother passed away unexpectedly, leaving behind a 16-year-old girl with nowhere to go. No father in sight, no relatives willing to take responsibility. Just Daniel, who had barely spoken to her in years, suddenly becoming her only option. At first it had felt like an obligation, a responsibility handed to him without warning. He told himself he'd do what was necessary, provide a roof, food, safety, but nothing more. Now, as he looked at her curled on his floor, trying to take up as little space as possible, that idea felt hollow. "Come on," he said, standing up and reaching for his blanket. "Get up." "I'm okay, really," she murmured. "You're not," he said, firmer this time. "And I'm not arguing about this at 2 in the morning." She hesitated, her pride flickering in her eyes, but the cold was stronger. Slowly she unfolded herself and stood, her movement stiff. Daniel lifted the blanket and guided her onto the bed. She perched at the edge like she might bolt at any second. "Lie down," he said, softer now. She did, carefully, keeping as much distance from him as possible. He climbed in beside her, pulling the blanket over both of them. The mattress dipped slightly under their weight, the space between them heavy with everything unspoken. For a while neither of them said anything. The silence wasn't empty. It was filled with hesitation, with years of distance, with all the moments they had missed. Daniel stared at the ceiling, his mind drifting. He remembered the first time he met Lily. She was 8, standing behind her mother, clutching her hand, peeking out with cautious curiosity. He had been too caught up in his own life back then to notice much else. Too busy building something after his wife left, after Emma was born, after everything fell apart. He had told himself he didn't have room for anyone else. Now she was here in his bed, shivering despite the blanket. "You can come closer," he said quietly. "It's warmer." "I don't want to bother you." "You're not bothering me." She didn't move at first. Then slowly she shifted an inch closer, then another. The distance between them shrank. Minutes passed. The warmth started to return, faint but real. Daniel could feel her trembling easing, her breathing becoming steadier. Then, just when he thought she might have fallen asleep, she spoke. "I didn't want to go back to that room." Her voice was so quiet he almost missed it. "Why not?" he asked. She swallowed. He could hear it in the silence. "It's too quiet," she said. "And it still smells like her." Daniel's chest tightened again, sharper this time. Her, his stepmother. Lily's entire world. "I keep thinking she's going to walk in," Lily continued, her voice trembling now, like she forgot something. Or like this is all just some mistake. Daniel closed his eyes. He knew that feeling. The way grief played tricks on your mind, turning absence into something almost visible. "I tried to sleep," she whispered. "But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hospital. I heard the machines, Her voice broke. Without thinking, Daniel reached out and placed his hand gently over hers. She froze for a second. Then she didn't pull away. "I know," he said softly. "I know what that feels like." She turned her head slightly, looking at him in the dim light. "You do?" He nodded, though she could barely see it. When Emma's mom left, it wasn't the same, but it still felt like something got ripped out of my life overnight. Like the world just shifted. Lily was quiet, absorbing his words. I used to sit up all night, he continued, thinking if I stayed awake, maybe things would go back to how they were. Like I could somehow undo it. Did it work? She asked, almost hopeful. Daniel let out a small, sad breath. No. The word hung between them. But, he added after a moment, it got easier. Not because it hurt less, but because I learned how to carry it. Lily's fingers tightened slightly under his hand. I don't know how, she admitted. It just feels too heavy. Daniel turned his head toward her, his voice steady but gentle. You don't have to carry it alone. She went still. For a moment it felt like the entire world paused, waiting. Why, she whispered. The question caught him off guard. Why what? Why would you help me? Her voice cracked again. You barely even know me. You didn't even want me here. The words were raw, honest, and painfully true. Daniel swallowed hard. She wasn't wrong, but something had changed. Maybe it was the way she had curled up on his floor. Maybe it was the way she tried to make herself invisible in a house that was supposed to be her home now. Or maybe it was this moment, this fragile, quiet moment where everything real finally came to the surface. He squeezed her hand gently. Because you're family, he said. She let out a shaky breath. That doesn't mean anything to people anymore. It does to me, he replied. She was silent again, but this time it felt different, softer. Then almost like she was afraid the words might disappear. If she didn't say them quickly, she whispered something that made his heart stop. I heard her before she died. Daniel's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Lily's voice was barely audible. She thought I was asleep, she said. But I wasn't. She was talking to the nurse. She said she was scared. Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. She said she didn't know what would happen to me, Lily continued, her voice trembling. And then she said, she hoped you'd take care of me, that you were a good man, that you just didn't know it yet. The room fell completely silent. Daniel stared into the darkness, her words echoing in his mind. A good man. He had spent so long just trying to survive, to provide, to keep things from falling apart. He never stopped to think about what kind of man he actually was. Until, now, beside him Lily shifted slightly, her head resting cautiously against his shoulder. He didn't move away. Instead, he adjusted the blanket, pulling it tighter around both of them. I guess, he said quietly, his voice steady despite the emotion pressing against it. She knew something I didn't. Lily let out a small, fragile laugh, the first hint of warmth in her voice. Maybe, she said. Daniel stared at the ceiling again, but this time it felt different. The cold was still there. The problems were still there. Nothing had magically fixed itself, but something had changed. The space between them was gone, and for the first time since everything fell apart, the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like the beginning of something,